think I just smacked my teeth there, which will be part of the intro from now on. I'm going to, every time I intro the podcast. I think maybe I've gotten lazier, but again, there's no such thing as a normal week anymore. A kid in my son's class got COVID, so my son is now downstairs doing remote classes. This is like another week off school minimum. He got his second vaccine. Japan is at 64% vaccinated. I believe herd immunity sort of starts to happen around high 60s, 70s, which is good. I mean, that just shows we're on our way to maybe getting back to normal, but then immediately saw they're now warning of like this year we're going to have a blistering flu season. So last year we didn't have one because everyone was wearing a mask and washing their hands. I guess they're predicting that people, like, given the opportunity, are going to be lazier about it, not want to get the flu vaccine or things like that, and thus flu is going to run rampant this year. I don't know. I think I would take the flu. I know it would suck, but it's like, it's the flu. I would get a flu vaccine though. I've gotten every other vaccine. I'm like, pump me full. They're talking about booster shots. I'll take a booster shot. Okay, but that's not any of the news. That was all just off the top of the dome. This is like freestyle rap news. Freestyle news. I think I've just found a new genre of things. Like, you just read the news for a week and then just like talk and try to get as many news stories as you can in the news. Anyway, Kishida is our new prime minister for the moment. He talks about wanting to, I mentioned it last week, the income disparity. He wants to stop that or reduce that, which is good. And then there were like 20 stories about capital gains tax. That's right. I didn't write any of them down because it's boring. But basically the reason it's boring is because he doesn't say anything about it. He's like, we're going to look into that. He's got one answer for everything, and it's, we're going to look into that, and we're going to do research. We haven't got any policies. What we have found out, though, because what he does is he answers questions on Twitter, which is a risky thing to do. Kishida loves Kimetsu no Yaiba, the Demon Slayer manga. He has not watched the anime. He has read the manga. So someone asked him if he'd seen the movie. He said, no, but I've read up until the most recently released manga edition. And he wants to raise the income of anime, movies, and manga so that we can produce more and higher quality. I think maybe he hasn't taken a moment. I know it must be well known. Like, manga artists and stuff, their lives are horrible. They make movies and TV shows about how shitty the life of a manga artist is, unless you are like literally the top 1%. So I suppose the exact same thing on Twitch and OnlyFans and any other site where you're just trying to make money off people, drugs. Because something I read, it was Freakonomics maybe, and they were talking about like, you would actually have more growth potential working in a McDonald's than you would than working in a drug cartel or a gang or something like that, selling drugs on the street, because it is only the top percent, really small percent of a drug organization that makes money. Like the guys on the street are probably making less than minimum wage. So they'd actually make more money in a safer environment with more growth potential working in McDonald's. But of course, no one sees it that way because they see the incredibly high top level glorious leaders, and that's what they want to be. And the owner of a chain of 3 McDonald's doesn't have the same sort of appeal, despite the fact they probably still make, cash money. Kishida, that was totally just off the dome news. I was walking the dog this morning thinking about like podcast names, and I came up with a whole bunch of really good ones. And of course, I can't just like have them all or make all those podcasts, but off the dome news, it would explain the format. Ninja News Japan, I actually shopped around with some friends, so we came up with News in Japan was pretty good for what I was doing, and the Ninja just made it sort of more alliterative, which made it easy to remember. Kishida wants to increase Japan's soft power industries. This is actually a really good idea. people fall in love with manga and therefore fall in love with Japan and therefore have a positive image of Japan as a country. And that's good for the country. It means you don't have to invade other countries to get them on your side when you want to do stuff. Because if you love Kimetsu no Yaiba, why would you oppose the policies of the country where Kimetsu no Yaiba comes from? Which is true. Having mentioned Twitter, I'm going to do my stories out of order. But this is technically a new story. Should I do the transition sound? Sure. It doesn't hurt anybody to do a little extra transition sound every now and then. Let's do another one just for fun. Okay. The Minister of the Environment is on Twitter. Now, he doesn't use it. So this became very suspect very quickly. So I read 2 or 3 stories and actually became pretty clear what's probably happened. But it's funny, the Minister of the Environment follows several adult-oriented Twitter accounts. This is Tsuyoshi Yamaguchi, and he follows the one that had the funniest name, Japan Big Tits Review Blog, which, again, since we're talking about titles, the titles, that's a pretty good title because you pretty much get all the information of what you're going to get on that website from that title. So you come to Ninja News Japan. The joke I put on the website was that you'll never see the ninja because we don't actually talk about ninja. If a news story comes up with ninjas, I would talk about it. That's going to be pretty rare because ninjas aren't a thing. But if you go to the Twitter account called Japan Big Tits Review Blog, or I assume they actually have a blog, I think you know what you're going to get. Like, I think what you get is in the title. So, and then it turns out a lot of the other accounts that the Minister of the Environment follows also have boob-oriented content. So this is funny because now everyone's like, oh, this dirty old man. He doesn't realize that the accounts you follow on Twitter are actually public. Like, people can see what you follow. So he didn't know that he's got a fetish for big boobs. Well, he knew he had a fetish for big boobs, but now everyone else does. It turns out when this news came out, he was following 96 different accounts, and now it's down to 11. So he's just dropped all those big boob-oriented accounts, especially Japan Big Tits Review Blog. A very reasonable explanation for this, that the Minister of the Environment is not a big boob fetishist. He may still be, but he's got a good cover story if he is. The claim, and again, this is done by his staff, turns out that he only uses Twitter once a month. He'll post something once a month, and it's all very innocuous stuff, very appropriate for a political thing. And his staff and stuff claim he was just following back anyone who followed him. So Big Tits Review, said it wrong. I don't want to get the name wrong. Japan Big Tits, it's because it's specific. It's not just any big boobs. I don't like saying the word tits. I keep reverting to boobs because it's actually less sort of, I don't know, maybe it's not. I should actually check with a lady friend, which is a more offensive word to come out of my mouth. I feel like tits is a very hard word, even though it's kind of a more fun word to say. The Japan Big Tits Review Blog, that it followed him, and so he just automatically followed it back without checking the content. And there is a bot that auto follows that maybe he used. So he maybe didn't even follow back. He has a thing that just automatically follows back anyone who follows him. And since the Japan Big Tits Review Blog was connected to a bunch of other ones, they all followed him, and then he auto-followed them back. So maybe he's not a creepy old man, actually. He's actually a very good minister, and he's very concerned about the environment. And this is just an accident of the internet. Again, not 100% knowing how things work. Hey, auto-follow back sound good. Do you want to do that? Yeah, of course. And then he just never looks at it, realizing that it's now just jack full of porn. I honestly think that's a pretty reasonable explanation. And then since it came to light, he purged his Twitter account, which, when all is said and done, is fair. It doesn't sound like he's done anything wrong. I kind of like him more for having made this mistake and introducing the Japan Big Tits Review Blog into my life, because I've gotten to say that 8 times in the last 3 minutes. We talk about government and ministers and stuff. If you've followed news Japan over the last year, for the entirety of the pandemic, you will note a certain tone that I adopt when talking about the Go To Travel campaign, as in, it's a terrible idea to do when there is the risk of a pandemic. I could certainly go back and find a multitude of episodes where I go off for an extended period about the horror that is the idea of encouraging people to travel during a pandemic and bringing coronavirus with them across borders. But then the Go To Travel campaign was kind of retired. They kind of said, hey, scientists have said, look, encouraging people to travel during the pandemic, they have traveled and they've spread coronavirus around. This is a bad idea. They stopped it. The new tourism minister, so we have a new prime minister, which means a new cabinet shuffle. So we have a new tourism minister, and his job is to encourage tourism. Kishida has said to him, we want to do it safely. And so the new tourism minister said, it is important to balance the prevention of the contagion and the promotion of tourism, which I would counter with, no, it isn't. Because there is no need to promote tourism while there is a pandemic going on. I know it's your job, but if your job is, I actually would say primarily to make sure people live long enough to do tourism. We are, as I said at the beginning, now at like 60+% vaccination rate, fully vaccinated. The number of cases in Tokyo is the lowest it has been in the last year. I think there were 80 cases last Saturday. Saturday's like the big day for cases. Things are going the way we want them to go. They've talked about a sixth wave as being very dangerous, is the whole idea. And I have been like, let's just not do a sixth wave by everyone staying home for a little while longer. Going out, promoting Go To Travel and getting people to travel now while the pandemic still exists, like it's not gone yet, is a bad idea. And I know this dude's going to do it. And they're going to say like it's important to be able to balance and keep people safe and stuff, but they're not going to be concerned with that because economists think the economy will solve all problems while disregarding the fact that the economy does not account for contagions and people die. And if enough people die, there is no economy anymore. So keeping people alive, economically speaking, is a really good idea. And something that they all should be thinking about and not promoting tourism. Japan has a problem with the birth rate. And I read an article and it seems like people don't get it. I have put forward a theory that the reason the birth rate is so low is the incredibly poor work-life balance of Japanese businessmen. They work all the time. They come home, they sleep on their days off, and then they go back to work, and that's it. That's their life. They have found, a study has been done in Europe, and has found that the larger the disparity between housework, the lower the birth rate. So they're saying basically if women do almost all the housework, you actually have a lower birth rate. You get less kids. So instead of trying to increase the work-life balance, like lower the amount of work the average Japanese business guy does so that he can be at home and maybe help out around the house, which might be a natural result of just being in the house more. They're actually saying they should just increase the amount of work, the housework, that the man does. So we're not going to lower the amount of work he does outside of the house. We're just going to increase the amount of work he does inside the house, therefore lowering the amount of work the wife has to do. She might be working too. I'm not saying this is like a perfect system. But I think they're missing the core element, that it's not that he's doing less housework. It's that he's not home to do any housework, which is why the average Japanese man doesn't do any housework. It does go back to my original point. It's not the housework that's the problem. It's the work-life balance. Japan is actually one of the few countries that offers men paternity leave. But like holidays and other stuff, their contracts actually say they have paternity leave, but they don't take it. So in 2020, 12.65% of eligible men actually took paternity leave. And why? Because they feel an obligation to their work to such a degree that they feel like they can't take it. This also goes for holidays. I think last week I actually explained the Sayshine, which is like the lifetime employment system. But it comes with all these benefits, but there's actually an implication that you don't use any of those benefits. So it comes with X amount of days off. Huge number compared to the average worker. But it's very clear from Japanese work life that you aren't supposed to take any of those days off. They're actually only for emergencies or things like that. Yes, this study has probably found that men around the house who do more housework, you actually, have a better relationship with your wife and you're more likely to have more kids. I think they have failed to take into account, let's compare how much those men work versus how much Japanese men work and how much time they are at home and how much time Japanese men are at home. And then start looking at the disparity. Basically, I think my theory holds true. And they're looking at something else they can blame for the low birth rate. And we'll say, well, let's change this. But then there comes the secondary problem. How are you going to make Japanese men do more housework? Like, how is the government going to impose upon the average man in Japan who's worked a 12-hour day and just gotten home and everyone else is in bed? If you watch like Japanese dramas and stuff, it's very common for the Japanese man to come home. Everyone's asleep. He has lunch or dinner laid out for him. And then he sits down and eats by himself. That's like a very common thing in a Japanese TV show because it's a relatively common thing in Japan. So how are you going to get that guy to do more housework? How is the government going to impose that upon you? And then how does that increase the birth rate? Because if his wife's asleep and he never spends any time with his wife, you've actually missed the first barrier, which is these people have to spend time with each other. We have 2 stories about Saitama. Saitama's apparently a very newsworthy place to be. They have put into effect an ordinance. And the ordinance is no walking on escalators. This has come up a bunch of times. I guess they say, I think it's a really dramatic title, they want to make it illegal to walk up the escalator or walk down the escalator, which is not 100% true. They do say, please don't. And they put up signs and stuff, and maybe they give you a fine, but I bet you just get a warning from a very unhelpful police officer or something. Station attendants will come. But from October 1st, the idea is that in Saitama, you stand on alternating stairs. So the first person will be on the left, the next stair down, the next person on the right, left, right, all the way down. So you use all the stairs, which isn't most people actually will leave a couple stairs in between, but that's fine. I don't think anyone's going to really get upset about that. The governor says walking on escalators is extremely dangerous. If you fall, not only do you fall, you will cause others to fall as well, which is kind of technically true. And I always had the nightmare scenario of you fall up on the up escalator and your fall is at the exact same pace as the escalator goes up and you just fall for eternity. I mean, it's like Sysiphus Trip. So if you go to Saitama, this comes up every time we talk about the escalators and these ordinances and stuff. There is a weird culture thing in Japan that, depending on what city, it depends on which side you stand. So in Nagoya, where I work, you stand on the left of the escalator and people who walk up on the right. But when I go to the head office of my company, I go to in Osaka, people stand on the right and they walk up the left. And coming from Nagoya, it was really weird. I didn't know I felt like I was doing something wrong, but didn't know why. Anyways, if you go to Saitama and you walk up the escalator, you might have an old Japanese man come and tell you don't. He's doing his job. He's not being mean. Sure. There's another new. Let's do a break. Let's do another double. Oh yeah, not enough of a break for that. Don't know what I'm doing anymore. In Saitama, I'm pretty on board with this. They've decided to swap out, or they haven't decided, they've proposed that they swap out school uniforms with, casual formal clothes from Uniqlo. Uniqlo, pretty sure it's famous enough. Most people know what it is. A Japanese company. They make relatively cheap clothes. You buy pants for $20 or 2,000 yen or something. But they last a long time. They're fairly good quality. Everyone loves Uniqlo. I have Uniqlo pants I wear to work all the time. The average school uniform will cost anywhere from 40 to 60,000 yen. I bought school stuff for my kid last year. He went to high school. We ended up paying 75,000 yen in total for shoes. Like, I'm not just a uniform, like a variety of shoes and like gym clothes and stuff like that. 75,000 yen, which is a lot. He looks good, but since we've had the pandemic, he hasn't actually worn his uniform half the time because he's been at home. The other thing is these clothes, the uniforms, the official ones, actually have to be dry cleaned. So you run into two problems. One, it's expensive to dry clean stuff, and because they wear them every day, you have to dry clean them fairly regularly. So if you're already struggling to pay for the uniform, dry cleaning might be difficult. And then the kids wear them constantly, and which means they might stink. So that's something to be aware of. And I actually think, yes, reasonable clothes, not cheap, not expensive, but reasonable prices for school uniforms. If you're going to make kids wear school uniforms, that's all right. This was an interesting story. It's not funny because it involves a guy on death row, so that's already. So this guy killed his wife and son and mother-in-law back in 2014, and he was sentenced to life in prison and the death penalty. So he's on death row, but again, they do it, it's just not very much. So you can actually be on death row for years and years and years. And there's appeal processes and stuff. But he has not had access to colored pencils since February, except he has had access to mechanical colored pencils, which is a thing I didn't know they made. So they changed the rules that you can't be in prison and have colored pencils, but you can use a mechanical pencil and swap out the graphite you use. Now, he says that not being able to use colored pencils, despite the fact that he has colored mechanical pencils, this is the sticking point for me. I'm like, you do have colored mechanical pencils, you just want a very specific type. It infringes on his freedom of expression. He can use normal pencils, and he can use colored pencils from a mechanical pencil. I've said pencils too many times. It's now like losing meaning in my mind. And he says that drawing is part of his atonement for the crime he has committed. Now, I'm torn. So this is now just opinion. Should someone on death row be able to make demands? He says it's for his atonement, but is it? He's actually like, is that sincere? Because if it's sincere, I actually might be on the side of let's give it to him. But if it's not, he's just demanding art supplies. I don't think being in prison is really just a place where you can have the time to sit down and draw and get fed and stuff. It's a question of, is prison punishment or rehabilitation? So I often flip-flop on this. Some days I'm really, go get them. And prison is punishment. Therefore, if prison is punishment, it shouldn't be a pleasant experience. But then that is how you end up with hardened criminals. So if it's about rehabilitation, you actually should be giving him everything he needs to rehabilitate himself. And that might include a very specific set of colored pencils. I don't have an answer. It would be something I would be interested in what other people's opinions are. Should a man on death row be given the art supplies of his choice, even though, and I think this might be my sticking point, he has art supplies available to him, just not the ones he prefers. So I might go out on the internet somewhere and see if people have opinions on that, because I bet I would get some pretty dramatic opinions. My feeling right now is that since you have colored mechanical pencils, I mean, that's good enough. Maybe I'm a bastard. There's a ramen shop. I didn't write down what city. And they have banned YouTubers. Oh, it was in Kyoto. It was because it's a ramen shop chain in Kyoto. And they have said, we are banning YouTubers. So people come in, and what they do is they say, oh, we're a YouTube channel. We're going to come in. We're going to film entering and then talk to people and stuff. And basically you're tacitly agreeing to have your face on YouTube, which you actually might not be comfortable with. And there's actually a problem in Japan. It's actually illegal to like film someone and put it on the internet without them, basically signing off. So like you think in America they do that all the time. In Japan, it's actually a crime. So I think I've mentioned that before. People are telling staff they're YouTubers and they're going to make a video, and they've put up a sign. This is actually the best part. So the ramen shop put up a sign that said, it's kind of gross and uncomfortable and it bothers customers. So basically they're saying, if you're a YouTuber and you say, I want to come in and make a video, they're going to go, nope. You go screw yourself, get out of here. Anna, so the All Nippon Airlines, is offering sort of a lottery for vaccinated people. If you are vaccinated and you take a flight with them, you are going to be entered into a lottery to win free flights, which is the whole story. The problem, the only reason I brought it up is because of the enthusiasm of the video that I watched to get this story. So I do this podcast, and in this podcast, I try to, put some life into my voice. I try to sound happy when I'm talking about happy stuff and angry about angry stuff, maybe even more so than I actually am. But I try to give some what we would call voice variance so that it is an interesting thing to listen to. And then I listen to this.
All Nippon Airways and Japan Airlines launched programs to offer lottery gifts to people who have received 2 doses of the coronavirus vaccine.
I mean, do I actually have to say more? Is this podcast and my announcer voice better than someone who is paid professionally by a news organization?
Starting October 1st, ANA is accepting the application.
Yeah, so this is the Nippon TV News 24 Japan. So this is like an actual news agency. Maybe they only have one English speaker in the building? But come on, guys. Give me 2,000 yen. I'll do that 2-minute thing for you. It's going to sound way better. All Nippon Airways has put you into a lottery. I get to move my eyebrows while I say it. I'm sorry. It bothers me when I outdo other things where people are getting paid. I do this for free and I put effort into it, yes. But I mean, again, as you can see the opening of today's episode where I kind of was like, I'll do whatever I want. I kind of messed it up, whatever, because I made a sound during the opening song. But it astounds me that the quality of this podcast outdoes the quality of anything else where people who are getting paid are involved. That's all. If you're vaccinated, you could get free flights from Anna. And JAL has something similar. Great. I mean, just, if you're going to make a video, you need a better voice. I'll do it. It's going to be cheap too. I'm not expensive. So our last story is the only dirty story of this week. I'm trying to balance things out, but sometimes there's very dirty weeks and sometimes not very dirty weeks. Upskirt photography. It was Totatsu. I actually should have written that down. I'm forgetting my dirty words, which shows that I'm not talking about it as much as you think I do. Is on the rise. Chica, which is the getting on the subway and getting close to a lady and touching her, is on the decline. And it's because people are more willing to call out someone who does chica. So it's actually gotten more socially acceptable for someone to be like, hey, that dude touched me. Not cool. And then people will grab them and take them to the station staff and get in trouble. So that's going on decline because people are calling you out. But of course, upskirt photography, much harder to catch. And they say the reason it's much harder to catch is because new technology has actually made it easier. And also the closure of sex businesses during the pandemic has increased the boredom of perverts. They didn't add in the perverts part. I did. Just again, so you know where I'm editorializing. In 2017, there were 1,741 cases of upskirt photography or arrests therein. In 2019, there were 3,953. 610 of those cases used mini cameras. And so what they do is they put the camera on the tip of their shoe. So let's say it's the escalator. And then I would just stand with my foot between your legs if your legs were separated at all. And then the camera would take pictures. Or I get on the train and I try to stand in with my foot in between your legs and take pictures. They put them on shoes and umbrellas. So if it's on my umbrella, I can stick my umbrella under your skirt. Pens or glasses. I don't know how you get your glasses under someone's skirt. I assume you're not wearing it because you get your head under there. It would be a bit much. Osaka has done a crackdown or trying to do a crackdown, which this is increased police presence and stuff, but they're also handing out leaflets telling people what to be like careful of and the warning signs. Apparently, the pandemic has driven perverts into the street with the most common way is they just stick a smartphone under your skirt, hopefully when you're not aware, on their part. I hope you are aware, and I hope you catch them and they get arrested. I do not want to send a mixed message here. Ninja News Japan is not pro upskirt photography. I actually think it's really gross. And I was going to say also the pictures aren't very good. That's not the issue. Porn is free on the internet. If you want to look at naked ladies, you can get better pictures there. I am all about quality in my perversions, which is not how I wanted to end this podcast, but it is the last story, and that might be the last thing I say. So, what was that site? Nippon TV News 24 Japan. There is an open offer. If you want me to narrate your videos, I will do it with a ton more enthusiasm than this garbage over here.
100 pairs of free domestic round-trip flight tickets. The airline will also give discounts at its group gift shops to customers.
I am already losing my mind falling asleep. She sounds bored and unpleasant with the story she's supposed to be delivering to you. I had more enthusiasm talking about the pervy dudes.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe on iTunes, Google, Spotify, or anywhere you get podcasts. You can also watch on YouTube/Velocipodcast or streaming on twitch.tv/chunkmcbeefchest. You can find Ninja News Japan on Facebook. Send questions or comments to speakpipe.com/Velocipodcast. Link in the description. Check out all the podcasts in the Velocipodcast family. See McB, Ninja News Japan, and Daily Affirmations Weekly. Traveling during the pandemic is not a good idea. The government should not promote it, and the Go to Travel campaign is one dogshit idea that they won't let go of. They will literally kill people, the people who they want to pay money to travel, to try and keep the economy going, the economy that relies on people being alive. Please, stay alive.
Oh, that actually sounded quite nice. That voice was better than the voice from that, than this voice over here.
Their certificate of vaccination or negative COVID-19 test result. Japan Airlines will similarly offer free flight tickets as well as self-package tours that
I don't know what that is. That is like someone out of college who's never done this before.